All right, so we are recording now. And this is when I read that little blurb that says, thank you for joining today. This is the City of Kingston's Live Well Kingston Commission. And I'm Emily Flynn, the Director of Health and Wellness. And today is March 17th, 2021. And a few different notes to go over for our public meetings policy. So it's good practice to mute yourself if you're not speaking to avoid background noise. As the organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone. We don't have any audio listeners yet, but if we do, state your name before you talk. It's always a good practice. The recorded video of this will be on the city's YouTube channel. And as the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock, pause the meeting, and eject anyone who is behaving inappropriately. And then I'll stop there, and then we'll do, I guess we all know each other, but let's do introductions for if anyone watches the YouTube channel. So as I said, I'm Emily Flynn. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness. And I'm going to pass it to Troy Ellen. Would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Troy Ellen Dixon. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Marketing and Program Director at the A.J. Williams Myers African Roots Center and a member of the Live Well Commission. Oh, and chair of the Live Well Commission. Well, sorry, I will pass it to Susanna.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Susanna Callahan, Vice President for Planning and Community Engagement for the Mid-Hudson region for the Institute for Family Health and a fairly new commissioner for Live Well Kingston. Glad to be here.
And hello, I'm Melinda Herzog. I'm the Healthy Communities Program Leader at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County.
Thank you all, and we'll see if Stacy's able to join us again. So the first thing on the agenda was the February meeting minutes, so I'm going to pause on that until we have a quorum, so we'll possibly come back to that. So I'm going to move on to a little bit of a conversation about the Travel Well Focus team. It'll mostly be me presenting. One of the Travel Well participants, Sarah Brainhart, I'm missing up my Sarah B's, not from the Farm Hub, but Sarah Brainerd from the Kingston Land Trust was going to try to call in, and she can try to share some of her thoughts at our last meeting. But I think for the most part, I can talk us through a lot of it. Feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions. The big accomplishment for Travel Well has been to meet. Travel Well is made up of three different organizations: the Kingston Green Line, the Complete Streets Advisory Council, and Bike Friendly Kingston, and then the city. So 4 organizations, but that's kind of been the foundation of Travel Well in the past. That's not all of the different transportation options in the city. And in fact, our big accomplishment for our last meeting on February 24th was that we got Saja from the director of the Ulster County Transportation, UCAT, the Ulster County Rural, words are failing me in this moment. Anyway, Saja was able to join us, and we got a really great connection with her to hear what's going on around the buses in Kingston. And I can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I guess I just want to say that some of the goals of Travel Well was just to meet regularly, because there is so much work that's happening, and a lot of the people that have traditionally been in that focus team have been swamped with work, and it's been hard to get them to come together. So it was a big accomplishment to get this meeting together. Shall I move on to talking a little bit more about that meeting and my action plan? Any questions yet before I move on?
I just wanted to ask, is Stacy back in the waiting room yet?
I don't see it.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. And thanks for that reminder. You all got in, which makes me think that something was working. But if we have any ideas about if there's a bigger issue, please let me know. No one's texting me. I'm not getting any emails either. So keep watching. All right, I'm going to continue. So at this February 24th meeting, the big takeaways that I got from this meeting with Saja was that ridership for public transportation across the board, not just here in Kingston, but across the country is down. Understandably, I think a lot of it has to do with some COVID scares, but it's a real issue for public transportation. So the funding is often connected to participation, riders. So that's a big issue that's happening. They hope that it'll come back. There was a study and a grant, I believe, to try to bring some electric buses into the fleet. And along with their studying, the best location for those buses will be Kingston. So Kingston will be getting the 3 electric buses. I guess the electric buses don't work very well or as efficiently in more rural routes. So we're glad to have that come here to Kingston. UCAT is providing rides to vaccines. That was really great to hear. We know that transportation is a big issue to many different things, especially vaccine access. Another really great thing that I was really excited about was that they have hired a graphic designer to work on their schedules and some of their communications. I don't know if anyone else here is familiar with it. Typical of bus information, it's like lines of times and numbers, and it was very hard to understand.
That'll be really nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that.
That's needed. Yeah.
So those were the big takeaways that I got from that meeting. Next steps are I'm going to do a doodle poll, get those people together again. At some point, I think I'd like to expand Travelwell to include more community members and some other groups, because really we've been focusing on those kind of 3 or 4 organizations. But in the short term, I'm just trying to get a couple people together and then I'll try to expand. To go to our action plan, number 2 on our action plan is to get transportation groups to work together to achieve common goals. And those are those 3 organizations that I mentioned, Bike Friendly Kingston, Complete Streets Advisory Council, and the Kingston Green Line. So I'm kind of the liaison between those organizations. The 3rd goal is the community knows and gives feedback about transportation projects and is educated on how to use infrastructure. So this is coming up because there's the big Broadway construction project that's happening that will include a 2-way cycle track on Broadway. There's a lot of concern about people knowing how to use that infrastructure, both for drivers and cyclists. So Kristen Wilson and some other staff members have, I think, created a proposal, which they brought to the Common Council, and they're asking for funding for that. We don't know what their response will be, but we're trying to plan for some more transportation education. Most of these grant projects, and what I know about them, is that they don't often include educational funding. So there's a gap there that is needed to be worked on. Another part that's happening is that as a part of the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, oh, here comes Stacy again. So let's see if she was able to join. Hey, Stacy, can you hear us now? Yay! But you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry. I was putting off updating Zoom and I finally just did the update, and I don't know if that was what was the problem, but I'm glad it's working now.
Yay. Thanks, Stacy. Thanks for trying. I know that's hard.
Yeah.
So I was just starting, I'm about halfway through. I'm on goal number 3 for the Travelwell focus team. And I should take a step back and kind of explain what the pedestrian and bicycle master plan is. Some of you, I think, have heard me talk about it quite a bit, but I'll just reiterate that the city got a grant from the State Department of Conservation. Thank you, Troyan. And we got a grant for $60,000 to help do a pedestrian and bicycle master plan. So the city has not planned for active transportation in the city other than piecemeal like projects. So this would be a comprehensive plan for how people come in and out and around the city who are walkers, bikers. It would also include a ADA transition plan. So emphasis on accessibility for sidewalks and people with disabilities. It's been going on for quite a few years, but we're finally getting to an action part of the project, We have a draft request for proposals that we hope to send out next week. We've been working with the state project manager to change our budget amendment. A year ago, when COVID happened, we really felt that the Common Council was probably not willing to bond to support this project. So we changed our plan to have more city staff complete the requirements for the plan and not have a consultant, not pay a consultant to do it. So that's taken quite a bit. It's taken basically a year to try to get that budget amendment. Let's see what's going on next. Another
I
goal-
just have a quick question on that. Is that one of the projects that is in the chip?
No.
Oh, okay.
So correct me. So my understanding of the chip is that is Ulster County transportation funding, and that different municipalities within the county submit proposals for funding. Are we talking about the same thing?
No, I'm talking about the community health improvement plan that we submitted to New York State Department of Health. So many acronyms, I know.
My apologies. Right. I think that the bicycle and pedestrian master plan is in the health plan. Yes. I think
Okay.
that's one of
Yeah,
our-
because I remember you saying it was stalled for a little while. So this is really great news. Okay,
I think it's
thank you.
the TIP. The TIP is the transportation. So, and I'm got my transportation hat on.
Right.
The other goal for our focus team is to update the green line map, which I don't have a link to here, but I'll pull it up while we're talking. The city and these different people who work on this project, we didn't have funding for a marketing or graphic designer, and that's my previous life was as a graphic designer. So a couple of years ago, I helped make this map. I'm not really doing that work anymore, but I still update the map because I was the one that created it. And I can pull it up kind of in a moment when I get a second. The final thing, which I've mentioned, is to plan for future active transportation projects. So in my experience being involved in the city of Kingston, quite a few years ago, there was a big push for all of these rail trails in the city of Kingston, and that's the Green Line system of trails. And we're actually accomplishing quite a lot of that. The Empire State Trail now comes to the city. There's the new rail trail just opened by the beach. And it's time really for the city and a bunch of other people, the community, to decide what our next long-term goals are. And we don't have a real process for that, but it's part of the pedestrian bicycle master plan will support that work. But it's a bigger goal of what do we want to accomplish in the next decade? Because we're kind of at a point where we've accomplished quite a bit, and I don't think that there's planning for much for the next decade.
Is there, Emily, if I may ask a question, does the city keep track of usage? Like of the rail trail at all? I mean, I know that's a hard thing, but and the other projects that have been developed, and if so, how do they keep track of that? Like what populations are using all these new terrific things?
Gosh, thank you that's a perfect question, Susanna. I always forget to mention this. So the way that the city keeps track is the work that I do. So we have 3 pedestrian counters installed, 2 on the, and you know what, I'm going to put in the chat a link to the Green Line map. And you know what, maybe I'll share my screen for the recording. Let me do that. So I hope you can all see, this is the Green Line map. The Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 1, so it's a big name, is this loop that is kind of in the Rondout. It connects Midtown to the Rondout Gardens housing complex. That Phase 1 has 2 pedestrian counters on it. Where's the other one? I'm blanking on the other one. Well, so we have 2 more counters. I'd like to install one on the Green Line. On the Green Kill, the part that was just installed is part of the Empire Trail that is this section. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yes.
Great, okay. So I would like to put a pedestrian counter over here. And then now the Brickyard Trail has just opened, which is this section that's north of the beach. I'd like to put another pedestrian counter here. So that's a start to answer your question. So that only counts like warm bodies. It does not do any kind of breakdown of men, women, ethnicities, none of that. We, except for this last COVID year, because I got so swamped with other work, for the last 3 or 4 years, I conducted a pedestrian and bicycle count on Broadway at 4 different intersections for 3, so it was 2-hour blocks on 3 days. That's a little complex. So 3 days, 2 hours at 4 different intersections. We had people sitting out and counting who crossed the intersection and who biked through the intersection. So we had that kind of preliminary data. It's not great. There's always more to be done, but it gives us a baseline. And our goal there was to know how many people were using Broadway before and after the planned improvements. That's the real data that I'm interested in. After we install this 2-way cycle track and we improve our crosswalks, how much more active transportation will happen? And I think that data will lead to further improvements within the city.
And the green, and I'm sorry, I get the names of all these things mixed up, but the green line is the green line and or the rail trails. I mean, some of those were developed or built specifically in lower income neighborhoods. Is that right? Was that one of the goals of that was to make sure that all people from all backgrounds would have greater access, but especially people who maybe historically have not had access to it? Is that right? Am I getting that right or?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and so many of these trails are old train beds. So, those where historically the train lines went through, which was the lower income neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And so that now that we've taken them over as trails, that's kind of where we had the right of way or the ability to do trails. Absolutely part of the goal of building new parks and new rail trails is to try to access neighborhoods that have been historically underserved, are still underserved. The Green Line, which is this whole network in the city, helps with that. There's a kind of a a campaign called the 10-minute walk campaign, which is a website where it maps out municipalities, and you can put in the city of Kingston is on it, and you can find out what communities are underserved by green space. And the goal of that campaign is that a green space is accessible by every resident by a 10-minute walk. And these rail trails have helped with that, but there's clearly still neighborhoods that are underserved.
Is there a plan to do something at Hasbro Park that I've heard about?
So I don't know specifically what you're referring to at Hasbrook. There's a Parks and Rec master plan, but then there's also, I've been working with a community group that would like to put a green space at 78 Franklin Street. So that's in the works. It does not feel like there's a clear process for new parks in the city of Kingston, and that's something that I'd like to try to support. So that's in my Play Well focus team, and I hope to kind of present on that a little bit more when we talk about Play Well. But I'm happy to. It's all interconnected.
Does the rail trail currently go anywhere near Hasbro Park? I have to admit that I haven't walked the whole thing.
So if you can see the map, Hasbrook Park is right here. Do you see where my mouse? So the rail trail kind of goes around it because it's quite
okay. It does.
There is, there's an old road kind of above where the yellow line is here. Ideally, eventually, we would build trails that go up into Hasbrook Park. It's all very expensive and long-term goals.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. While I've got the Green Line map up, any other questions about the different, there's a lot here and people, it's really, I know it, but like my husband doesn't understand it. So I understand that it's really, there's a lot of different segments and I can try to explain them if anyone has questions about it. Does anyone want me to talk through the other parts of it?
Well, this is maybe a dumb question. So the Green Line is different than the rail trail.
So, well, it depends on what you mean by the rail trail. So the green line is all of these rail trails, all of these walking paths within the city as a system. So it's really about how do you connect? And so
Okay, I'm thinking the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail, which I've walked part of, and then I have walked actually recently, I don't know how many miles from uptown down to the roundout on the bed, I guess that's the green line.
right. So each segment has its own name, which is really confusing.
Okay. Mhm.
We would love to get funding to try to do like a full marketing plan and have, a set of brochures that show the different segments, like I'm sure some of you have seen the national park, how there's a great opportunity for better communications. Let me say it that way. So why don't I go through some of the projects? So the new Brickyard Trail that just opened by the beach is this segment that goes up here. The Kingston Point Rail Trail, that's kind of a gravel trail that's kind of falling into the creek, is this section. I don't know if you all, and it's where the trolley goes. The Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2 is this yellow segment. The city is pretty much like what the term like shovel ready. We just need funding for this segment. We're hoping with new federal transportation support, we're optimistic that we might be able to get some funding for it. This Phase 1 is the segment that opened, maybe it's 2 years ago now, maybe a year ago now. This was the, like I mentioned, by the Rondout Gardens, that goes all the way up to Midtown by Burger King and behind Walgreens. That's that segment. This Hall Ave and Cornell Street is on the street. It's signed and it's a complete street. So the goal is that people would have to walk and bike and share the roadway with private vehicles there. But then Broadway, which is under construction, would be a two-way cycle track all the way up to, from the YMCA, all the way up to the future roundabout at Albany Ave, near the Academy Green. So that's that segment. Greenkill Ave is that new section that just opened, and that's connecting to the Empire State Trail. The Midtown Linear Park, so sometimes people call that the Green Line also, but that's called the Midtown Linear Park. The county is the one that's working on that project. When they're done developing it, they're going to hand it over to the city to take care of it. Currently, it's gravel. It's not done. When it's done, it'll be paved and have amenities. And that is what connects from Down Street to the grocery store to Hannaford. That's a big connector there. The Schwank Drive is the Uptown Transportation Project that the city just did a public meeting for a couple of weeks ago. The hope is that there will be bicycle and pedestrian consideration in that redo of that streetscape. And then it connects onto Washington Ave by Picnic Pizza. And that rail trail, I think that's called the Kingston Rail Trail, connects to the rail trail that you might know on 209, which is kind of what I consider the original rail trail, which opened when I was like a teenager. I'm aging myself now. And that's the paved rail trail that you see on 209. Questions about that? All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to take a sip of water. So that's kind of all in the travel well world. There's a lot there. Thank you, Troylan. There's a lot going on. I am not the grants manager, so I can't speak to all of the grant projects, but I did want to share a link to the grants activity update. If anyone here or in the public is interested in knowing the status of all of the transportation projects that are happening right now, this is one place to start. It lists all of the grant projects and it gives like a quarterly update. They can find that if you're watching on the recording, you can find that on the city's website. Let's see, how can you find it? I think you can search on the website grants activity update would probably be the best way. I'm pausing for questions or thoughts. So commissioners, I would love feedback on how to develop travel well, or if there's things that we're not focusing on, priorities that we should do, any kind of feedback.
I don't know. I would say the one thing is probably the education and outreach on the expansion of the trail system. You know, via social media is really great, just so that it can be shared and shared and shared. I shared my walk on the Brickyard Trail and people hadn't heard of it yet.
Thank you for that, Melinda. Yep.
How, where you want to have more community members involved, how are you planning on accomplishing that in the Travel Well with, I mean, Facebook Live via Zoom events that you invite people to learn about what the work is, or?
The short answer is I don't have a plan yet. The longer answer is it's because the group has been kind of the organizations that have been doing this work, none of them have extra capacity to kind of help with communications or outreach. But it's kind of like, as we talk about kind of with some of our other groups, it's like the chicken or the egg. It's like we need more people to join so we have more capacity to bring in more people. That's not a great answer, but I think it's also spending some time reflecting on what people would be interested in knowing and what's, I think there's so much that is not being communicated that in some ways it's hard to know where to start also. Those are a bunch of different thoughts and not a great answer, but I'm starting there.
No, it is an answer. It's not an easy thing to do, obviously, but to be as inclusionary as possible whenever the outreach does happen. So, you know, in every category, in every area, there's always like, oh, let's not see the same people all the time because it's based on interest, and sort of spending time, I guess, is, you know, as Melinda said, focusing on the education and the outreach to get to build awareness that this exists.
And it might be like the people that are working on these different projects, that's one meeting and that still continues. But then we identify that outreach that we need, and then we like invite a presenter and we make that a Facebook Live event. And maybe it's kind of identifying and maybe allowing space for kind of the different versions of communications about transportation that can happen.
Mhm.
Oh, here comes Heidi. All right. Hi, Heidi. Thanks for joining us. I don't know if you can hear me yet. Looks like you're still connecting. I don't know, Heidi, if you're talking to us, you're muted.
I apologize for being late. My calendar did not ping me and tell me I needed to sign on.
No, that happens.
Yeah.
Emily, I'm wondering, because I know Susanna has to leave early, and since we have Heidi here, do we want to do whatever we need to do when we have a quorum?
And unless there's more questions about Travel Well, that was kind of the end of all the content that I had for tonight. So let me just, yeah, it sounds like I think we're wrapping that up. So great. So the one thing we needed for quorum was approval of the meeting minutes. Did all the commissioners who are here get a chance to review February's meeting minutes?
Yep.
Did.
All right. Any edits to it?
I didn't see any.
Okay. Do I hear a motion by anyone to approve the February meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any conversation? All right. I'll call a vote. All in favor?
I just think that's not to, all in favor, then I'll give just I just wanted to remember to go back to the presentation that we got by Tim last month, that we did want to go back and spend some time on it and think about it a little bit further.
That's on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you. Great. So I'm going to call a vote. All in favor of approving February's meeting notes, say aye. Give a thumbs up.
Aye.
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 All right. I noticed all of you, so there's no abstentions, so it passes. Thank you so much. Great. So yeah, that brings up the old business, which is a conversation around the economic plan. You know, I don't have a copy of Tim's presentation, but I do have a link to that full report, and I'll put that in the chat. We had mentioned at the last meeting that we could send a letter to the Ulster County Economic Development Department, giving feedback if we wanted to. Who would like to say more about that while I put this in the chat?
I have a question. I thought Tim was going to send us his presentation.
And I emailed him, I didn't hear back. So I'll ping him. He's super busy. We all know that. I'll try him again.
The health department has a copy of a very similar presentation because he presented at our Healthy Ulster Council meeting. So he approved us posting that, so I can share it.
That would be great.
Great.
So, I can't recap all of it, but I'll try to get the conversation going. They had the different buckets of economic development that they were thinking about. I thought that the emphasis on the old IBM buildings was really interesting. And it sounds like people have applied to use some of that space, which sounds really interesting. Let's see, what other parts people affected? Let's see, health and wellness as the biggest sector of jobs in our county. I want to point out that here, I'll share my screen. In the report is a picture from the Food Collaborative, which I'm so proud of. I see John here as part of Project Resilience. So I think that's really neat. Here's the Food Collaborative at the YMCA about a year ago. Nice. Anyone have any thoughts about this plan or how we should move forward, kind of bringing this, keeping this as as a goal in our work?
I don't remember what Tim said about, I know that there's this task force that worked together to come up to identify these priorities. But I don't know I'm just kind of curious what the process is for some of these projects, like who makes the decision about if there are 100 proposals for the IBM building, like is that like a public meeting? Does the public get to comment on that and kind of have a say, or anybody know on some of these things?
Yeah, there's how to stay involved. I'm sorry.
They did request.
Running kind of broken up over here.
That's okay. I was just going to say they did request it.
Okay, great. Sorry.
You could comment on it publicly. Yeah, you could comment on it publicly. They put out a query for ideas, and it went out by email. It went out on social media and website, and there was a lot of places to comment on what you thought the IBM complex should look like. So there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like on his slides, I did send them to Emily. So if you want to open that up, I think it'll help us to see the link altogether. There's a way to share your input through this link. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen, but I could show it. Would you like me to?
Yeah, here, I can make you a co-host. You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just like 7 slides or so, but it starts out with the title page and then talks about what is the goal of the plan. And they evaluated, some of the data, the status of our economy, and figured out the challenges. And figured out, that there's a gap for the wealth, and the income gaps are rising compared to the real wages shrinking, and other unfortunate things with life expectancy declining and environmental degradation posing an existential threat. So then it goes on to show the people-centered economy model, and how they're sort of reimagining ways of engaging with these different sectors of agriculture, makers and creators, clean energy and environment groups, and then health and wellness. Here were the work group members. And they are focusing on these 5 bullets. And they have priority projects. And the IBM campus is a big part of it, where they're going to ask for input of how that building space will be utilized. And they have already asked for input of what it looks like, what it could look like. And then here's the link for sharing your input. So I can put that into the chat. Oops. When I clicked on it, it launched to the page actually. Can you still see this now? It's in Economic Development's website.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So it brings you there, and then it looks like there's different ways to learn about it and communicate about it here on the website. Join the discussion. Okay, yep, here's the survey. So individually, it looks like we can all do this.
Oh, okay, so maybe that's a good first. Well, at least for, I guess, a good first step for us to work on, or maybe share with our organizations to encourage them to take the survey.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find it. Okay, yeah. So maybe that's something that, we can do, is help share, encourage as many people that we can reach, to participate in the survey. So, the voices are heard from Kingston. That might be something that makes sense for us to do.
I think it's a great idea. Yep. Thank you for sharing that presentation, Stacy. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's good. So so I guess it's actually more than just a plan, or because it sounds like certain aspects have already been, they're starting to implement. Let's just see.
I asked Stacy in the chat if you would be able to email that presentation to us. because it's almost identical to what he presented to us.
Yeah, I already sent it to Emily, so.
Oh, okay,
if she
so
wants to
Emily
Go
can.
ahead and forward that to everybody. That would be great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do I need to click on stop sharing now, Em?
Yep.
Okay.
And I've put a link to the website, the survey, and the full report in the notes. So we'll have it there as well. And then when I send out the notes, or you know what, maybe I'll send out the presentation first in case I don't get to the notes as fast.
That's great.
I think we certainly can be supportive in the area of health, wellness, and care,
Yeah,
since that's one of their pillars.
yeah.
Advocating, organizing, whatever the requirements are that would support that.
So Stacy, you're still sharing your screen, and it doesn't look like I have the ability to make you stop. There you go. Great.
There.
Next time, FYI, Emily, you can just as the host allow other people to share the screen without having to make them the host.
Okay, I'll have to look around for that.
Yeah, it's usually in share screen options, and it just says, you know, participants or something like that, and you retain, no other person can share the screen at the same time, and you can block people if you want to.
I may have
I
to,
didn't know that either. That's good to know.
I think some of my settings are locked by the admin, but I'll have to dig a little bit further. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That one bubble of health, wellness and care could definitely be something we help out with. You know. It's great.
I know in my other life, like with CLP, Citizens for Local Power, we're going to be, you know, focusing around climate and energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there are so many things in the plan that are reflective of, you know, the social determinants of health. One of the things we might be able to do is just write a letter as a committee in support of the plan and send that to the county.
Well, that was simple. Thank you, Belinda. It's a good first step.
That's fantastic. I can try to pen something. I'm not the best writer, but I'm sure it doesn't have to be super fancy. So why don't I try to write up something, and I can, oh, here comes Sarah. Send it up to you all for review.
Sure.
Hello, Sarah. Looks like you're able to join us. You might be driving. Hi.
I am here. I am driving.
So Sarah, I did the travel well presentation already, and I kind of talked about our meeting with Saja. Since you've joined, is there anything that you think is important that I may have forgotten about?
Well, I didn't fully read through the presentation because it was a full day. So I will pass that back to you to see if there's anything you think from the Kingston Land Trust perspective. But I think if you've noted how you usually take minutes, I think we're good.
Thank you for that, Sarah.
No problem.
Yeah, great. I kind of just I gave them bullet points of the top level things that was my takeaways from our meeting. Yeah, I think we're probably okay. And I'll just say that the Kingston Land Trust is a great partner, and that we work on the Green Line together a lot, and a lot of other projects.
Great. I'll listen in and I'll let you know if I think of anything else.
Thank you, Sarah. Great. Going back to the economic development report, anything else that we want to touch on here? I've got a next step for us, which I'll work on. All right. Thank you, everybody. So that's all that I had on the agenda. Next up is any new business. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to new business?
I just wanted to mention, oh, am I, okay, yes, I'm unmuted. So I was able to learn about the Kingston, I'm gonna get the acronym wrong. It's the CAC. What does that stand for?
The Climate Advisory Council?
Yes, they established a wood burning air quality subcommittee to address air quality concerns in the city. And we had talked about this as a group about a year ago, and we're really interested in a brochure that they had published about wood burning smoke. And they have been working with BARD to do a particulate monitoring study at top of the Andy Murphy neighborhood building. And so they just released the findings of a year's worth of study on the air particulate conditions in Kingston on top of that building. And it was really great. We did a little collaboration with the press release where Dr. Smith put in a quote, and I think the BARD was quoted, and maybe the DEP about the work that they're conducting. But it's tangential to some of what Travel Well does. So I just wanted to bring it up because they are calling on the community to reduce vehicle idling and vehicle emissions. They're also asking the community to look into the 511 New York rideshare program to, you know, be a part of air quality improvements. So I think their work is fantastic, and just thought that we should bring it up and say, you know, kudos that that's happening. The findings of the study are great. There was the majority of the air quality, the fine particulate that they were measuring was in normal ranges for the most of the year. There was just a few days that it went to a dangerous level. So that's good news. And the next steps are that they want to do more monitoring to sort of get the pulse of how air quality is in other parts of Kingston, not just way up high on top of the Andy Murphy neighborhood center, but they're looking to expand the monitoring. And so this particulate sort of pollutant is from like wood smoke and other ways that it gets into the air. So they're just, you know, doing a local examination, which is really fantastic. Vehicle idling is another big thing besides the wood burning. And you can learn about it on the City of Kingston's website. So if you just kind of go to the City of Kingston and then air quality, or, you know, there's probably an easier way to do it, but it's very good information.
I have a couple of questions. When did the study start, and then when did it end?
Okay. Looks like the mayor said it began January of 2020 as a
Okay.
partnership between BARD and the City of Kingston Conservation Advisory Council's Air Quality Subcommittee.
Right, I know who was involved in it. I just wanted the dates when it ran to.
Yeah, it's just saying it began in January 2020. And
Which was 2 months before we shut down for COVID. The question I'm asking is that a lot of people weren't doing anything. They may have been, you know, burning fire pits, I don't know, or, you know, if they have wood burning stoves. I moved from Connecticut. A lot of people have fireplaces and wood burning stoves and things like that. Not sure that's happening in Kingston, but in terms of vehicle emissions and things like that, there wasn't a whole lot going on from March 13th until like today. I mean,
Yeah, it says after a full year of monitoring. So it sounds like, you know, this is reporting from January 2020 to January 2021.
so yeah, so I'm just wondering, do they have a plan to do it again when real life resumes?
Yeah, it looks like they,
And I'm not saying it's your study, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
You have it in front of you.
yeah, I'm just reading the press release and,
Okay.
you know, it seems like, you know, what you're pointing out is very true. They should continue it because our environment changed drastically with
Yeah,
COVID.
the other thing, I don't know if it's on the report, is to really look at the peaks and valleys, if it was graphically recorded to understand. Was Broadway being torn up last year during this time? Or was it the year before?
I think
I
it
have-
started. I think it started during COVID because I remember thinking at least there's less traffic right now. I think it was about a year ago that Broadway started to get dug up. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so much going on Broadway with everything. I don't know. It's just, it was one of those anomaly years. It's really hard to say we're going to use this year as a basis for our study, you know, for our information.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about that. And I do know probably during the winter months that more people were using outdoor fire pits, whether in ground or portable, because that was how they could sit outside and, you know, mask
Right.
up with
Socialize.
friends.
Yep.
So there's so many different things. Is wood burning smoke a big issue in Kingston? Because like I said, in New England, you know, if you don't have a fireplace, you can't really even sell the house. You know, because everybody in New England wants to be able to have a roaring fire. No, seriously, you know, wood burning stove, honey, get the checkbook, you know?
Oh, gosh.
Anybody want to take a stab on if it's an issue here?
What do the results say? I mean, if that particular thing is monitored, it'd be curious to me. Did they say it was bad? I would have said no, but what, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I would think that it's, oh, okay, I keep thinking I'm muted, I'm not. So it seems to me that everybody I know has a fireplace or burns wood, but I haven't seen that they have a baseline on, you know, how many people in the city of Kingston do burn wood. That would be interesting. I know that the chair of the committee would be willing to come and talk to us if we are interested in hearing more. And, you know, this is an interesting issue. I guess this PM 2.5 can lead to higher death rates in people who have contracted COVID-19, they figured out.
Yeah.
So it exacerbates conditions that already exist, and the tiny particles also can create problems, you know, where there's no problems. So they enter the bloodstream through the lungs, and it's been linked to, you know, asthma and heart disease, and even some forms of dementia. And the sources are oil burners, gas burners, automobiles, cooking, grilling, both indoor and outdoor wood burning. So this is just a first step in like the monitoring locally. And then it says there's, you know, regulations by the EPA for thresholds, like, and so that is something that they compared it to. Lorraine could talk more about all this.
It's kind of interesting. Sounds like electronic fireplaces are
The way to go.
I don't know how nice they are to be around. Yeah, that's an interesting study. I totally didn't see it at all in the news. Wow.
Lorraine came to us, I don't know, a year or two ago, and she did talk to us about this topic. Would you guys like me to invite her to come back?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, if it's impacting our, our air quality that much, and we do know there's a lot of people who have asthma in our area. Who knows, maybe it's this is the condition that's causing it. Who knows?
Also unhealthy homes.
Yeah, well, that's
We're talking in CLP, Citizens for Local
Yep.
Power, about the issues around that. Apparently, there's an initiative where Medicaid can be used to renovate or refurbish living spaces based on the fact that it's causing, childhood asthma, pediatric.
yeah,
asthma.
yep.
The issue becomes, though, that how do you, because then there's less, emergency room visits, doctor's visits, et cetera. So that's the link for Medicaid. It actually reduces their costs, but they're having trouble convincing Medicaid that there is a direct line correlation between an unhealthy home and asthma.
Then there's lead paint. The issue is lead paint too.
There's
right?
lead, there's probably mold, there's, all the plethora of
Exactly.
things that go on,
In
anything
an
like that.
in an unhealthy home, sure.
Yeah. And typically those homes are, it's the people, the vulnerable people who can't really do anything about it. That's who it hits.
Right.
And it's their health, it's their living environment. Just goes on.
Are there any other trigger facilities that are causing air pollution and stuff, like like in the cities and bigger cities? It's often communities that are high rise public housing units and stuff by the bridges, like GW Bridge. George Washington Bridge is kind of known now for all the really poor health outcomes for the populations that live right around the bridge. And also in the Bronx by some other, like the waste management plant area and some other places are known for really higher rates of asthma and all kinds of other issues, especially affecting kids. I don't know if there's anything else in Kingston or Ulster County that are triggers like that. I don't think so. I don't know though.
Well,
I
guess
don't know who would have
depends on-
thought fire pits or,
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. I live on a Beale Street in the Rondout, and I remember coming home one day and calling the fire department, 911, because I smelled gas, natural gas. And they came promptly and walked around the neighborhood for a good hour and a half, and it turned out that the recycling reclamation center down the road from me was actually cutting up propane tanks.
Oh man.
And that's what, so as a result of cutting them, they were exposing all of the residue in all of them. So I'm sure there are all sorts of impacts. I mean, I'm a girl from the Bronx, so I'm not worried about it because I've been living in cities for years, even though I spent many years in Fairfield County, Connecticut with a wood burning fireplace. But in any event, obviously, probably down here, if they did air quality samples, it would be much worse than maybe, let's say, the Stockade District.
Right.
Because I'm right across from Feeney's Shipyard. I love this neighborhood. I love the sounds and the whole thing about it, but the air quality probably isn't the best.
So it sounds like we have a lot of follow-up questions. So I'll be looking forward to Lorraine maybe can point us in some of those directions for how to get to those. And maybe also hear if they have plans for like another year study and those other locations.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you. And thank you, Stacy, for sharing that information, because I didn't know it was done.
Me neither. And it's nice that BARD, you were able, the city was able to work with BARD, collaborate with BARD and their expertise. Was it students or was it professors and students? Do you know?
It was definitely a professor's, because Eli, who's the photo on this webpage, is a Kingston resident.
Mhm.
It's probably the Center for Environmental Policy, which includes
Richard.
graduate students. Eli heads it up, or is one of the key professors there.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't see his title in here, but yeah.
That's great. No, that's really nice that there's that partnership.
On so many levels, there are so many partners. I mean, as you know, Heidi, we partner with, BARD on community conversations that are being held, Girls Right Kingston.
Love it.
I'm developing a personal statement, writing workshops for high school juniors with BARD. BARD is my go-to,
Well, they're awesome, and I've got my eye on them for a couple other things, and I'm like, they're just a really good research, that qualifies what you're trying to do. It's awesome. It's just really great.
And they're excellent community partners across all measures, from when we could do this community potlucks that they host in Kingston to these huge research initiatives.
Boy, and Malia's not even with us tonight.
You'll have to tell her to look at the last part of the meeting so she can see how highly we spoke.
Yeah.
Also, the SUNY Ulster is doing a great event for bringing awareness to underage drinking and driving. So there's going to be a author and a person who has lived experience with trauma of losing her 17-year-old son to underage drinking, and that is posted on our Facebook social media site. The event is happening on Tuesday, March 23rd, where you can be a part of the Zoom meeting for free. So check that out, and please share that with your circles.
Thank you, Stacy.
You said that was on your website?
I'm sorry, on Facebook and
On
Twitter.
Facebook.
Mhm.
I'll look that up and add that to the notes.
Great. Yeah, those are the kind of things I like to share with my membership so they can participate. It's great.
Any other announcements or communications? Oh, I have one that I really want to draw attention to. March 18th, tomorrow, is the Uprooting Racism Seeding Sovereignty keynote that the Kingston Food Co-op has been supporting and has a bunch of partners that are supporting it. There's a link in the notes, and I'll put the link in the chat. It's free. I highly recommend it. Troy Ellen and I both did a training for Soulfire Farm, which is the organization that the keynote is coming from. And it was, oh, that's the wrong thing. And it was just excellent. So I highly recommend this event tomorrow night.
Thank you, Emily, for saying that, because I was about to. Along the same lines of just community health and movement and everything, the Scenic Hudson Cliffs survey for the community is still out there. And since I'm in the car, I'm not gonna be able to chat that, but I'll make sure everybody on this meeting gets that. If you just go to just Google Scenic Hudson Cliffs, you'll find it pretty easily. Those are the two things I was gonna mention, so thank you.
Yeah, I did the survey about a week and a half ago. I asked the question if Hudson Cliffs was the absolute final answer for the name.
It's changed names like 5 times, so goodness, I hope so, because I keep forgetting what to call it when we're on meetings.
Well, but not even that. I was sort of talking about using it to sort of honor the indigenous land and using an indigenous name as opposed to yet another Hudson something.
Well, I'm glad that you submitted that feedback. That's exactly what Steve Rosenberg and everyone at Scenic Hudson's looking for. Because I know they're thinking of a lot of interpretive panels and potentially paying tribute to the existing things that were there. They're probably taking those huge concrete towers down. So yeah, part of me wants to cry because I think that they're cool, but they're gonna memorialize them in some way, and really make that space interactive. So the more feedback like that we can get on there would help them greatly through that process. And for now, Scenic Hudson's going to be managing that space. It's not going to transfer over to the state. So I think we can make more of an impact when Scenic Hudson's holding it. Until, when it moves to the state, I feel like our input's not going to be heard as loudly.
I thought I read that the state is hiring 2 employees or 2 people to be on site. And I thought that meant that it was transferring over to state faster than I thought, but I'm hearing from you that maybe it's not. Do you know anything about that?
I heard about that on the Ulster County Trails Advisory Committee the other night. That was the first time I'd heard of it. I hadn't heard it through any of my land trust channels. So I'll do a little more digging and let everybody know. I just don't think the state's in the position to take over. And I think Hudson is advising on a lot of the feedback, a lot of the design. So I think even if it does shift to the state, Scenic Hudson's still going to have their hands in it for a while. So I think that's really good.
Yeah.
And I am encouraged by the fact that they're exploring the interpretive panels and, talking about the area, not just from a European colonizer perspective. But I think they could start with the name, and I never pronounced the name right, but the original name for the river that flows both ways.
I never pronounce it right either, so don't feel bad.
I think it's Mahicantuck.
I can't, I'm not gonna try.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and it's being recorded, so now I've memorialized my dad.
It took me long enough to get Pankaki, so.
Oh, right. No, that I got early. But anyway, I digress. But I do think would encourage people to go on the survey, and I have encouraged people because they ask very detailed questions about the pathways and what should be done with the concrete columns and these things and that things, and they're really trying to gather a great deal of information.
Yep. Thank you guys so much.
Anything at the African Roots Library, Traylon, you want to talk about?
At the African Roots Center, no, we have a program coming up on Saturday with our very own Ethan Scott Barnett. Hudson Valley native and member of the board, has been involved, and it is called Who is Claudia Jones? And I'm going to forget the last part of it. But anyway, Who is Claudia Jones? If you go to the African Roots Center Facebook events page, you can register for it. It is from 4 to 5:30 on Saturday, March 20th. And she was a Black communist revolutionary.
Cool.
Thank you for reminding me.
Heidi, anything in the YMCA world you want to bring up?
In the near future, I'm trying to think if there is anything in the near future going on. I don't think of anything in the near future that's going on in the next couple of weeks.
Camp registration for camps are open, right?
Oh, yeah. Camp registration is open. We have Camp Siwakamano, Camp Wiltmead, New Paltz, Camp Starfish at the Y in Kingston is opened, and we're going to have camp in town of Esopus as well this year. Cool. And that registration will open on Monday.
My daughter submitted a design for the Camp Siwakamano t-shirt contest.
Woohoo! That's great.
When does the farm stand start up again?
That's a good question. We ask them a lot. I think it's going to start up like I don't know. Well, I think last year it was June. The spring one started, because just depends on how fast they can get stuff in the ground and start growing. They've already got stuff started in the
In the
greenhouse.
greenhouse, yes.
But, you know, getting it in the ground and moving it along is the key. They'll probably have, I think it's typically in May, they have their seedling sale where you can go and purchase seedlings for your own gardens. So that will be coming up. We will begin work on that playground that we didn't get to finish because of weather and the weather out west. The fires out west delayed the construction here, believe it or not. So we will, hopefully, we're going to start that back up at the end of April. We are looking to complete it by the end of May. So that will be really nice to have that open up and have maybe an outdoor ribbon cutting at last, something that we can do. So it'll be great.
And YMCA is involved with the garden bed, community garden bed.
Yes, yep. And they're planning on doing that again this year. They've actually, their staff that they've hired, because they were able to train so many young adults to be leaders, which is awesome. So they now have an army of garden bed young adults who can go out and put them up throughout the community, which is kind of exciting to see. You know, last year, I think we had maybe 2 team leaders. This year we have like 5 or 6, and they all have their own groups that they're going to work with. So yes, that's definitely being planned. And the nice part is it's going to be done by young adults from our community. It's great.
How about Melinda? You got anything from Cornell Cooperative Extension that you want to share?
Yeah, actually I do. Just to make everybody aware that our ag program is offering a new farmer series. So this is all online, and they've just got a whole series of classes on our website. I'll put that in the chat. But tomorrow they're doing site selection for berries and grapes for people at home that want to, you know, make their own wine. And then also they're doing next week, and following that, you know, it's finding your farm, that kind of thing. But we also have in our nutrition department, Chris Babcock is teaching an online class tomorrow. It's a healthy cooking class. There's a one every month that you can, he'll also be teaching about the safety of eating local fish. And our nutrition educator, Marcia Sebro, who's new to our FNEP program, has an online series as well. And this is for low income parents or caregivers with children in the home. And she is fantastic. I can't say enough about her. So if you know of any families or groups that could use nutrition education, it's a 6 to 8 week series. It's everything from, you know, budgeting, where to shop, food safety, how to cook, recipes, and how to get physically active. So this is a research-based project, really shows change over the 6 to 8 weeks. And we're always looking for new people to participate in ways to get that out there.
Who is the person who's running that nutrition education, Melinda?
So that would be Marcia Sebro, and I will put her stuff in the chat as well, her contact information. You just gotta grab it. And she's awesome.
Is this something you'd like me to share with
Not
my
that everybody is
population?
awesome, but that would be great. That'd be great.
you
In fact,
can
I
send-
can
yeah,
put the link.
Yeah.
Yep, I will put a link directly to the classes, and I'll get more information to you, Heidi.
Yeah, that'd be great, because that's the perfect stuff I like to share with my members if they know somebody or can, you know, probably would help everybody, to be honest with you.
No, absolutely. So I'll definitely do that. We've got certainly got some outreach materials to share. So I'll have Marcia reach out to you probably tomorrow.
Okay, good. Thanks.
And Sarah put in the chat that the Kingston Land Trust has trail rangers, limited trail wanderers, and an online virtual green line update sometime in April. So stay tuned to the Kingston Land Trust social media.
Thank you, Emily.
All right. Last call for updates, announcements.
One more thing, as we're all interacting more because the weather is wonderful and we're outside, just remember that the ticks are very hungry. So do your tick checks and learn the proper protocols to reduce them getting onto you. So I'll put a link to preventing tick bites into the chat for our
Perfect,
anybody.
thanks.
Boy, you guys, there's so much good stuff happening here. Boy, thank you all. I'll try to send some of the stuff out on our social, the Live Well Kingston social media. It's a lot. All right. I think that's it. Unless anything else anyone wants to bring up, we can try to end right on time, actually. All right. I'm going to end the meeting. I guess we have to do a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. It was lovely to see
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Happy
Bye.
St. Patty's Day.
Oh, yes. Awesome. Salantia.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.